Where's the EQ on the reverb? Delay time? Delay. Turn up the feedback. Turn up the feedback. Turn up the feedback. Wait. Pan the condenser to the left and the dynamic to the right. Lower the threshold. Raise the output. Wait. Set the frequency range. High pass. Our guest this week is Michelle Qureshi. Michelle is a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and classically trained guitarist. She writes and records her own music and has a unique style that combines complex guitar compositions with enchanting synth soundscapes. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on this show, Lady Audio.
I enjoy listening to the different guitar sounds in your recordings, and I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you've faced when recording an acoustic guitar?
Sure. I would say the initial challenge is that I'm in my home studio here, being the engineer and the performer, and so I'm kind of shuttling, back from settings on the computer to just nuancing around the microphones themselves. But beyond that, I usually just try to set a just kind of dry sound and play into it to get the nicest signal I can and the nicest sound. But I do know that in after a good recording of a track, I will go in and add things to that track, little spatial references and some delay, as you mentioned in one of the tracks, and things like that. So for the most part, the challenges are just in, trying to get that to sound like what you hear when you're playing the instrument. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then how about with recording electric guitar? Are there any challenges you've faced with that?
Yeah, sometimes that is also. Now I know a lot of people will play their electric guitar through an amp and actually mic the amp, and but I'm one that actually goes right into the audio interface with the guitar input, and then again just kind of a clean track, and then some of those uh, sounds that you mentioned liking, like some of the processing that goes on afterwards. That's where I kind of color it as I need with the guitar, kind of an after effect, I guess. So I don't really. I actually think it's easier to record the electric guitar than in this style than the nylon string and the steel string acoustics.
And speaking of recording, I've interviewed a few instrumentalists that will turn on their recording gear and just start writing straight into the box. And so I wanted to ask you, in regards to writing instrumental music, do you compose the pieces first and then record them? Or do you just, like you were just saying, plugging that guitar straight in and then just start recording?
hmm it both ways are things that do occur. I kind of like I know a lot of ideas kind of have just started on my guitar, but just as many ideas have come as a result of I just hear something in my head, and then that's when I have to write it. I would prefer to get to my computer and record, or at least put down some semblance of the idea, because it's so easy to forget good ideas like that. So I would actually say both processes are really part of it, but I do find the writing out of music to be so tedious and kind of after the fact. So if that's something I should be doing more of, then I'll have to look down the road and clean up my act on that. But for the most part, it's just like even the writing of music has always just been to record something that's great that's already happened, in someone's head. So it's not like my first interest to get a really fancy looking score, and I don't even really print out. I know a lot of the DAWs have that option, but I don't print out the scores for reference too much. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know if that's too long of an answer, but I can think specifically on this album that we'll be talking about today. The piece called "Given"
Mhm.
was totally built around just a very short and beautiful little guitar slide and harmonic riff kind of thing. And then another one from the album "Chasing the Wind" is just a little motif played on the Native American flute, and then everything is built around it. But I never thought, oh, I need to write down that motif. I thought I need to capture it first, the recording and the all the nuance and energy and feeling behind it, because just in a score there's not really feeling, there's interpretation waiting to happen, I guess.
Right, right. And yeah, the new album that you have out now is called Scattering Stars. And I wanted to ask in that song Given about that slide guitar. It's really warm and but it's bright at the same time. It really pops out in the mix. And I wanted to ask you what the details are about recording the guitar on this type of a song, like what type of guitar you used and the type of slide. Did you mic an amplifier? Actually, no. And now that you just mentioned earlier, I don't think you mic'd an amp. You just like went
Right.
straight
Yeah.
into the interface.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, what are the details for that
Yeah.
guitar?
Yeah. Well, first of all, even before recording it, if I can just describe the little note intro that you hear, it's a one kind of pass thing. It might sound like it's somebody playing harmonics and then somebody playing slide, but what I did is I open with harmonics and I play slide, all in one pass. I play the slide on it and then come back to the harmonics, and it kind of, for me, the terms like a slide is a very earthy sound, really grounded, but the harmonics are very ethereal, and kind of esoteric. And to me, the dimension of in that sense of like fullness, deepness, and brightness just would come, from just hearing it being played acoustically. But to enhance that with the recording, I did it. I set up the two mics I mostly use. And they're both, the cardioid condenser mics, and the one, which is a blue microphone, the Bluebird, tends to capture a brighter aspect when I use it on the guitar, and the Rode, that's NT 1000 mic I use, captures kind of that warmer, fuller. And I I kind of think bottom line, I got lucky in getting such a good sound on that. But yeah, I just set up the two mics and played into it right into the box, and then puts some of the I put EQ, reverb, compression, and limiter on on that track, those two tracks of the guitar, and then from there, just kind of like I think based on the other kinds of sounds I use beside it, allowed it to, as you say, to kind of like pop but be warm. These kind of sounds. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's given.
that's cool. And then where did you place the microphones? So, like, where was the blue and where was the road?
They were there to get us enough signal for me and my equipment chain. I'm still just pretty close to the microphones, so they were not that far from each other, and they were kind of more at the a little bit lower than the sound hole. A little bit on that part of the body of this guitar. Now, I don't know. The guitar is a Stonebridge acoustic guitar, and I've been playing that for a little more than a year and a half, and it's just it is a really nice sounding instrument, and I think that helped kind of shape the color of it, just to try to get as realistic of a sound with it as I can. But I have spent time, in different places, like grabbing some sound closer to the neck, grabbing sound, a little further out. So it's always kind of different thing. You never like put on one of my pieces and hear you recognize my style of playing, but you don't necessarily recognize the recording technique because it's always varied, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Now that I know you've used two microphones on that, did you run into any phase issues or was that ever a problem or did you look for that?
I don't think I ran into a problem with it. I think some of the spatial things I set up on the channels kind of helped a fair amount with doing away with the phase issues. But in general, no, I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, the way it came out, obviously I don't hear any phase issues, but
Hmm.
that was why I wanted to ask if you had to deal with that with the two microphones, but
Hmm.
it sounds like you didn't. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe that's because the
Yeah.
mics were
Yeah.
closer to each other, you know.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, and then on the song Overheard, there's a voice in that
Uh-huh.
song. Is that you?
That one, that is such a cool sound that is not me. I do use my voice and I do processes sometimes, but this is one of the virtual instruments I work with a lot, and I haven't even tapped the surface. Is this thing Iris that comes from Isotope? Are you familiar with that synth?
Yes.
Iris.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So this was just kind of like falling in love with some really cool sounds out of Iris, and then incorporated into what's kind of like a vocal but highly processed, and you think you hear something audible like almost lyric wise, but you're not. It's really just another layer of the piece of music. But I really like playing with Overheard, and that's why I kind of played with the title in that way as well, calling it
Yeah.
Overheard.
It is. It's
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
now that you mention it, it is kind of like putting your ear up to a door and trying to understand what someone is saying, but there's nothing going on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. You could tell any kind of story you want out of it because it's all about what you're perceiving,
Right.
not
Yeah.
necessarily what's there. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, the I think the title
yeah,
matches,
yeah.
and I like
Mhm.
I like the delay on the guitar in that song too. What is the type of delay? Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah, I went back actually to look at it specifically because there's four electric guitar tracks on there, and each of the setting is each one is set differently. I borrow from Guitar Rig, which in Native Instruments. I borrow some of the settings from Logic, and I looked up the delay, and it's actually in Guitar Rig called psych delay, like as in psychedelic. So
Oh, okay.
that's yeah, yeah. So if you use Guitar Rig or something, you can kind of look at that and play with that a little bit. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was a really nice choice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're mixing electronic synths and keyboard sounds along with these organic instruments, like on the song Solstice, do you ever find the electronic sounds to be challenging to mix in with the recorded acoustic instruments?
Um, I think the challenge is probably something that I don't even remember because if I was as you channel through sounds and you manipulate it and you move it around so much, you usually just go until you find what you want, right? So and you forget about what wasn't going to work because you kind of never entertained it in your ears. So I think that mostly I just listen until something feels and sounds compatible, with the acoustic side of things and and I think there's always a way to find it, whatever you have to change up in the sound or just search for the different parameter that, what is making this. I'm sure there's times when you actually want it to stand out and be quite different than like even in the song, as you mentioned, the solstice. It's like you don't expect the turn that comes in when the acoustic guitars come in. It's just very, gets really weird and unexpected. And I think a lot of the lot of the tunes on this CD take, there's some value in the unexpected that goes, and part of that is, mixing those sounds like that you wouldn't necessarily expect, but you still would say that hopefully that worked.
Yeah, I know. I've when I've been doing a mix, like, because I do a lot of experimentation on my own that I haven't released yet or had, professionally mastered or anything yet. And they're just little ideas, and I put them down. And I have noticed that sometimes it is hard to mix in that organic sound with
Hmm.
with an electronic sound. And I think that you do a really good job of that. So that was one of the things that, besides us being introduced by Scott Lawler,
Uh-huh.
any recommendations from him, I'm usually going to take because he has a really good ear for music,
Yeah.
and not just the sound, but also with the quality of songwriting too. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah. It was great to meet him, and I was so glad he connected us.
yeah,
That was nice. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
um,
But yeah, and thanks for the compliment on the blend. And like what I think is that, I just work till I think it does sound compatible and then don't look back,
yeah, yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
find it challenging, and a lot of times what I'll do is if I find my vocal isn't fitting with the little keyboard synth or whatever it is, or the
Mhm.
electronic drums,
Mhm.
I'll just process the vocal to make it more electronic sounding. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's an
you know,
option too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Besides the Blue microphone and the Rode microphone, do you use any other types of microphones when you're recording?
I really just have those two microphones. So I make use with that pretty well. I mean, occasionally, like I'll also run a track in if I just know I want to use one of the mics, and I can free up a line to plug in directly from the acoustic guitar. But that's not usually an ideal sound at all, But if I'm looking for something different, I can do that. But my interface is just in a duet audio apogee. The audio interface is just two in and two out like that. So I can't really go crazy on microphones, anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you go into Logic Pro?
Yeah. I like Logic. I mean, I've been with Logic for, I think, at least a couple years, but I kind of had I've kind of gone through a lot of different things trying to find what would work for me. And, once you find one that works, it's doesn't make a lot of sense to go too far from that because of all the learning curve. And, there's so much to be figuring out. Alone, even with the virtual instruments, or just improving your recording technique. So
Mm-hmm.
going through and saying, "Oh, I got to have this." I really try to have a minimum amount of tools, and try to get to know them as well as I can. And like I said, I feel like I just scrape the surface of what like I'm talking about Iris, the potential in those sounds. I mean, it's tempting to go out because there's so many different pieces of candy out there, but
Yes.
I really think kind of honing in on and committing yourself to just a small toolbox. And if I ever exhaust that, then yeah, I deserve to get more. But there's so much potential in that.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah. We should look deeply in what is there, because it's a pretty great time to be writing music like this.
Yeah,
So
it is. It is.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
discovering that
yeah.
the electronic music, to me anyway, it seems like it's getting better
Mhm,
these past couple of years. So it
mhm.
seems like when
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
first introduced, and with the like techno was really big, like in the 90s, and
Mhm,
I just didn't like
mhm.
how loud and obnoxious it was. And then all of these little subgenres started coming out of that, and I really think that the electronic movement has grown and
Matured,
matured.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
found some. Yeah, yeah, can be a little more finessed and nuanced and sophisticated, really.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
you also perform
Mhm.
live shows. And I wanted to ask, how do you do that? Do you play with a sequencer or how does that work?
Well, it depends on what the show is. I mean, I also have this whole kind of catalog of songs that that I do house concerts for, where it's kind of suddenly like I'm like a singer songwriter who will sometimes just play guitar and voice, but sometimes I will accompany myself with sounds I have on like the iPod that I've created, backing tracks for. That's one aspect of the performance that you wouldn't assume at all listening to Scattering Stars, because it has nothing to do with that kind of music.
Right.
And another thing I'll do for some venues, if it's instrumental, is something I love to do because I love improvisation. Um, I'll bring a very simple, the simplest loop pedal on the market, and simply improvise live loops and play layers of guitar. And I mean, that is really cool too, kind of thing. Sometimes I'll just, last week I had an outdoor, and we're in quite the heat wave, but I had an outdoor concert
Yeah.
that was kind of a pop-up concert in a local town, and I just brought, they wanted it to look spontaneous, so I just brought my acoustic steel string guitar and played some kind of like a percussive guitar and things with slide and capos and different tunings and just all my original music. But so I guess what I'm saying is, depending on the venue, I have not taken out a sequencer or something to kind of recreate one of the songs from this Scattering Stars. Um, I would love to do that. And if I have a venue where that would be applicable, that would be a fun aspect of things to doing. When I play in yoga studios, it's kind of like just a really calm, kind of serene, very soft playing a lot of times. But I could see like a faster paced yoga practice offering some more upbeat, and maybe have a sequencer and use some tabla sounds and things like that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to
Yeah.
hear that you're
Hmm.
so versatile with playing live shows. So, you could play a really mellow kind of wedding that's going to be more of a romantic type of a wedding, and you could play, a backyard party, and get everything set up for something like that. So that's really cool. And then as with regards to kind of more meditative type of music, that drone kind of stuff for doing yoga and things. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, there's so many. There's apps, that you can have tabla accompaniment, or you can have, the familiar kind of drone sound that you hear in the background, and I'll play a lot of times to that for a while if I'm going to use my phone in through the amp with the guitar. It's just like, oh, there's some sweet other ones I just learned about. Uh, the app is called Rise, and I'm trying to. Seaboard Rise is the keyboard. It's this new company, Roli. Have you heard of it?
No.
ROLI. It's ROLI. I learned about them at the NAMM show last month in Nashville, and wow, it's a beautiful kind of keyboard pad for playing, and they have an accompanying app, free app that I have downloaded and played around with, and it's would really be great to work. I just said I would limit my tools, but if I could get one today, it would be adding that to my repertoire. $800 later. So,
I know, I know.
but yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's like I said, it's just a really fun, exciting time to make music.
Yeah. What type of an
Yeah.
amp do you use for your guitar when you're playing live?
Yeah, that's been a nice thing that I've also, just like the DAOs, going through so many that didn't work until I got to Logic. I went through so many that just weren't doing it until I met a year ago at the NAMM show, a company called Sunburst Gear and Elite Acoustics. And they make these beautiful, they're based in California, and they make these beautiful monitors, guitar amp kind of thing, and they have it all like great for the like gigging musician because they have rechargeable batteries, they have Bluetooth. They have just released a model that has some built-in effects of reverb and let's see, phase, echo, flanger, chorus, just built right into the amp.
Nice.
And yeah, so I can just, I don't even need to plug in anymore at a place. That's why the outdoor ones can become easy and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a great company. And they've been very generous with these amps with me. And in fact, I need to very soon make a video to show I'm sorry, the the kind of video that product review video. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's what I need to do. So yeah, so that's the Sunburst gear. That's what I've been using for
Sunburst gear. Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
just a very good crystal clear sound, which you don't always get in these small things. And the one that just came out, I think it's 16 pounds. So,
Wow, so that's really lightweight. You can just take that anywhere.
that is lightweight. Yeah, yeah. Well, the last thing I want to do is carry something heavy with my wrists and then, turn around and play guitar. I've become very, very, conservative about where I'll put my energy. It's not on
Right.
carrying equipment.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really great. I'm gonna check them out because I have a little practice amp that I use. It's a Roland, and it has chorus and delay and little
Yeah.
effects in there
Is
too.
it the mini cube? The mini
Yes,
cube?
yes.
Yeah, that's one that I've transitioned through, as well as something called Lunchbox that I thought was going to be so cool, and sound wise it just couldn't cut it, and then Fishman for a while, and but this just has a clarity that a musician can really appreciate. So yeah,
Yeah,
check them out. Yeah.
I will. Yeah, because the Roland that I have, I just use it for practicing, and for playing live shows. We generally have more of a loud setup for playing in bars and stuff like that, because we play more rock and roll type, dreamy pop music. And so I have a couple of amps that I use to play live. One of which is my favorite, and that's the JC 120. Are you familiar with that amp? Because I really love that amp because it has stereo chorus. It's the Roland JC
Oh,
120.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah, no, I don't know it. Is it a
yeah,
bigger amp? I mean,
yeah, it's a
yeah, uh-huh.
bigger amp. It's about 50 pounds, I think. I know it's heavy
Oh
for me to
yeah.
lift.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
that
has a
is.
really nice presence. What would you say to encourage someone who is thinking about recording their own music?
I would tell them do it. This is like we mentioned, it's like the best time to be able to afford, any aspect of the equipment chain. I mean, put your energy in your talent and just get a basic system and start recording it, because it's available. I mean, you can make a home studio and you can set things up to capture pretty much anything. And I would really encourage them to do it. It's a little hard if it's a different question if you say, okay, what do you do after you've recorded your own music? That's to me, that's the hard part. Not the writing, not the performing. The hard part is the all on the end of, how do you compete in a very fierce marketplace that's not necessarily tuned to music as much as it is to business. That's the hard part, you know. So, but the recording and all that stuff, I mean, it's available to you. So if you desire doing it, do it.
I think that really hits the nail on the head. Like, yeah, because it's true. You know, if you and I like how you mentioned to put your energy into your craft. You know, put your energy into getting really good on your instruments and with your songwriting, and then the recording equipment is, it's a lot more user friendly now, and it's affordable now. And so yeah, that recording process, I can see how you're saying the recording is probably the easy part, but then figuring out what to do with your recordings afterwards is a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's aspects all along the way, like, what are your goals, or do you have goals, or are you someone like me who just feels like music flowing through you constantly, and it's kind of like it's something you have to do, and you can't get caught up in the like, oh, what rank did I reach on this chart, and how do I get this, and, the social media stuff can get you a little crazy because it puts you in that mind of, oh, I need to tell people, that this is out and this is out. And um, for me, it only really works when I feel like I've connected with somebody who's been touched by my music, or in that way. That's the connection. But a lot of that can get lost, even by me, when I'm posting again. And it's like, is
Mm-hmm.
there an easier way to do this? You just want to share your music. And the answer is, I haven't found an easier way, but one by one, you find fans and you connect, and you're growing something together, I think.
So where can people go to listen to and buy your music?
Sure. Right at my website, I have recently, well, the top of the year, I have like a Wix website that I use as my official website. And they finally added something called Wix Music, which means I was able to have a little control more than like CD Baby or iTunes. Once that's out there, you can't control any of it. But I could control and make available to my audience who wanted to go to my website. They can simply just, buy the music from there. So that website is my name, michellequreshi.com. I'm sure maybe you'll spell it out later, or something like that. But then, of course, the other places, it's at iTunes, Amazon. Bandcamp is a nice place. CD Baby. This particular one, Scattering Stars, the label is Heart Dance Records, and so they also have it available, and it can be streamed. And yeah, besides Scattering Stars, there I have 6 other digital releases, and none of them are really quite like Scattering Stars or like each other, because as I mentioned, I don't really work or focus in a particular genre. It's just how it comes, whatever it comes. So
That's cool. That's cool. And then in regards to live performances, would I just go to your website to hire you for a performance? How would I go about getting you to come to
yeah,
my
yeah,
house?
that would be perfect. And I would, yeah, yeah, just that's I've got a contact form, and since we found out, while you were trying to contact me, that it was typing white on white, I have fixed my contact form so you
Yay!
can see what you're
Thank you.
sending me. I had no idea. It's been like that for a long time. So that will send a message to me, and then I can respond to anyone interested, really, with any question. Not just performing, but any information or comments anybody would have. Yeah. So.
Great, thank you. And I will definitely add the link to Bandcamp for sure, because I'm a Bandcamp freak, and the link to
Fan.
your,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll also add a link to your website. Well, actually, I'll add the link to your website
Okay.
first, and then I'll put the link to Bandcamp after that. Because what I noticed was that from your website, that's kind of your hub, and I was able to find all the
Yeah.
links to all the places there from your website. So that one's definitely
Yeah.
the hub.
Yes, it is the hub. Bandcamp is very cool. I just have never figured out that revenue sharing formula. So that's the only part I don't get. Yeah. But I do like it. Yeah. I'm hoping the audience found this interesting enough anyways. And I'm kind of a, what you see is what you get kind of person. So hopefully it was informative. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it
And my
was. And
comment would just be, yeah, thanks for listening. And I hope people like this new album. And yeah, it was great to meet you and chat with you.
yeah, you too. You too. Thank you. Thank you for being on the show today, Michelle. I really, really appreciate it. And I know how busy you are because we had some back and forth on scheduling the pre-interview and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, I appreciate yours too. Thanks for having this program and giving other musicians an opportunity to talk about, what's behind the scenes, and just keeping the interest of music going.